In 1858, Chinese immigrants arrived in Victoria from San Francisco, following the news of gold on the Fraser River. They soon acquired properties at the edge of the city, and so Victoria's Chinatown emerged. It grew as an important trade center and gateway between the Asia-Pacific and Canada, and became the hub for early Chinese pioneers throughout the province in the 19th century. Across the Pacific, it became known as Little Guangzhou.
Our grandfather arrived in Victoria in 1889, and he came from Guangyun, China. And when he arrived in Victoria, he opened up a butcher shop, which is known as Loy Sing Gun, actually. And he barbecued pork and ducks and chicken and whatever he could make there. He had a great big, I guess it's a barbecue pit that he barbecued all that. We came along and we had to help too. Lena and I worked really hard. We had to do the same thing, pluck duck feathers, clean gizzards, and whatever else needed to be done, and we all helped one another. And I think with us working so hard, all working together, it was shows that the business survived, and we all were fed, and it prospered.
Loy Sing Gwen raised Benita's and Lena's family for 3 generations. Before the mid-20th century, racial barriers and discrimination against Chinese Canadians was prevalent in Canada. Much of the Chinese population lived in Chinatown. Restaurants and businesses grew and served a strongly bonded community for many years.
In 1895, he came to Victoria. And I think he found odd jobs doing things like, being servant and everything else.
I think he was 25 when he came to Victoria. And after doing the odd jobs, he started a business in the grocery trade, and it was called Yilan.
The importing and exporting business had to import all the groceries from China. They didn't even have rice in Canada. We had to get our rice from China, and then we supplied the whole island, Vancouver Island, for all the Chinese people who worked up island and everything. So that was what our business was.
Chinese pioneers brought in their culture and their traditions. And Chinese New Year has always been one of the most important ones.
I remember my grandmother had to have everybody clean the whole house from top to bottom. Everything had to be cleaned. And on New Year's Day, you were not allowed to wash your hair or have a bath. Everything had to be done before Chinese New Year. It was supposed to be a very happy time. And we all put on our Chinese clothes, all our jewelry, went downstairs, and all the people that comes in would give us the red packages. I don't know what you would call it now.
Red envelope.
We would call it lacy. So,
And we had to make sure we had big pockets.
yeah.
The celebration of traditional festivals added a hint of joy to the hard lives of most Chinese Canadians. According to Chinese elders, this handmade lantern was on display for the Lantern Festival in the 1930s. It was handmade in Victoria's Chinatown by an old master. We can identify this lantern as property of the Chinese Freemasons, Hongmen, by the top panel's icons. Chinese Freemasons celebrated their 150th anniversary in Canada in 2013 as one of the oldest and most influential organizations in Chinese Canadian communities. The Chinese Freemasons lantern is based on a traditional running or revolving horse lantern. This kind of lantern uses the air heated by candles or lights to move the horses and other connected parts around a central axis. It has been a popular arts and crafts tradition in Chinese culture for centuries. The bottom panels acknowledge sponsors and their contributions. Wally Lo's father, Kai Ho Lo, was one of the donors listed on the Chinese Freemasons lantern. Wally and his son, Frank, both lived in Chinatown. They and the rest of the Lo family have maintained close ties to the Chinatown community.
好多年前嘛，你翻嚟。
我零時呢就係啦，零時即係係啦，
好多年前好多朋友姐嘛，你拍埋。
係好年子。
Resort 嘅姐嚟嘅，嚟嘅 Philip Child 嘅 family 嘅姐嚟嘅。
呀，
嚟嘅姓李嘅，要佢姓李嘅姐嚟嘅拍埋係咪？
呀，
尾嚟
係啦，嚟老李。
所以要3個拍埋，5個拍埋嚟嘅。
我哋好多華僑子嘅。
所以呢華僑大部分都姐晒行嚟嘅。
係。呢個 block 咧，紅人子嚟。
During this time in Chinatown, the families lived in a closely knit community. Everyone knew and looked out for each other, as their ancestors had done. When they were joined together in contributing to the community, they also found true love.
I was about 17 years old, a line dance. At that time, Japan was invading China, and then on the parade, we're getting money to help the refugees in China. So we parade around Chinatown, and I was walking in front of her, and we got a picture of that.
Yes.
Yeah. So we don't know each other that much. We just say hi and so on. And then a couple of years later, we start putting on plays to make money for the refugees in China. And then she was playing a Chinese harp, and an old man, Mr. King Chow, come up and say, ask me if I want to learn how to sing Chinese opera. And I learned Chinese opera. And Mom and I was in some shows, and it's for charity, so I don't mind doing it. Yeah.
So was it love at first sight?
I don't know.
She already had a boyfriend back then, though.
Oh yeah, it's okay.
You got her in the long
She
run.
caught up to me first.
John Joe did not only contribute to the local community. As a veteran, he worked to end discrimination and helped Chinese Canadians receive equal rights after 1947. Chinese pioneers like John Joe helped family and community grow and raise the next generations to be pillars of Canadian society. His daughter Charlene is a Victoria City Councillor. Due to its economic prosperity in the 19th century, by the early 20th century, Victoria's Chinatown witnessed the growth and development of one of the largest communities of Canadian-born Chinese. Although its trade and population gradually declined as the renewal of urban areas and the breakdown of racial barriers encouraged its residents to live in the suburbs, it remains an important landmark for Canadian history.
Why it is so important? One reason is that it still retains the old building of the 19th century continuously. For example, these are 1880s. They are continually haven't been demolished or damaged, and then 1890 or along here. Now, this is probably the only Chinatown where they have a cohesive heritage building standing on one street. Why? Because Victoria does not have too many new immigrants after the 1970 or 80. That's why there's not many new developers coming in, buy up the houses, demolish the old buildings, and therefore these old buildings still retain.
For 155 years, Victoria's Chinatown has nurtured diversities and communities. Big business and the unofficial major of Chinatown's family. Small business. A contract laborer whose son is now the Royal Bank manager, Canada's Mr. Chinatown, and Chinese veteran and Freemasons' esteemed elder who helped Chinese Canadians receive voting rights and citizenship and raised offspring to become the pillars of today's society. Their hard work, dedication, and sacrifice have made Canada one of the best places to live in the world. Today, Chinese Canadians have integrated into Canadian society and continue to contribute to the building of a better Canada.